Benjamin Franklin, part-time vegetarian, vegetarian hypocrite. He, in his autobiography, mentions that at age 16, he became a vegetarian. He was influenced by the writings of a man named Thomas Tryon, who was an author in England in the 1600s. I was interested in Thomas Tryon. I wanted to know what exactly he had said about vegetarianism that would have influenced a free thinker like Benjamin Franklin to become vegetarian. So in reading this, I was saddened to find that really, even though there was some pro-animal rights stuff, he was a spiritual guru. He had spiritual beliefs surrounding vegetarianism, and in this way, he discredits the movement. He discredits animal rights and vegetarianism. If you look online, you'll find some websites that say, Benjamin Franklin, vegetarian since age 16. This is why he was so brilliant. This is why he made so many inventions, because of this vegetarian diet. But if you read a little bit further into the autobiography, you'll find that he was a total vegetarian hypocrite. Not even a flexitarian, just he lived with the kind of hypocrisy and this moral gray area of knowing that he shouldn't eat meat, that he shouldn't consume flesh, but he does anyway. And I find this happening all the time on vegetarian websites, on vegetarian YouTube channels, vegan YouTube channels, where they try to use these fake facts, this history that is not really true, to support vegetarianism, to support veganism.
Number 5. Benjamin Franklin. Known as one of America's founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin was a well-known scientist, politician, and inventor. He is credited with discovering electricity with his invention of the lightning rod. Franklin also invented bifocals and the Franklin stove. The witty inventor also abstained from eating meat. He is quoted as saying, "My refusing to eat meat occasioned inconveniency, and I have been frequently chided for my singularity, but my light repast allows for greater progress, for greater clearness of head and quicker comprehension."
For example, Franklin once almost killed himself trying to cook a turkey with electricity. Cooking with electricity was something Ben had been experimenting with, and he found electrified meat particularly tender. In early 1749, he even threw a picnic on the banks of the Schuylkill River in Pennsylvania, where the turkey was killed with an electrical shock and then cooked by being rotated over an electrically kindled fire. In a letter from 1750, Franklin describes an incident in which he was trying to kill a turkey with an electrical shock, but instead wound up electrocuting himself. Witnesses reported him being engulfed in a flash of light and hearing a loud crack. He would later tell his brother that the biggest injury he sustained was to his ego.
I remember the first time I went to a Loving Hut restaurant. If you're vegetarian or vegan, you probably have heard of this restaurant. There are chains all around the world of the Loving Hut. One of the notorious things about the restaurant is that they have pictures up of famous vegetarians or famous vegans with a quote from them about their veganism, why they became vegan. So this is something that you'll see if you first become vegan and look up information about vegetarianism or veganism on the internet. You'll find that most of the propaganda in favor of veganism relies heavily on the use of celebrities or historical figures who were vegetarian or claimed to be vegetarian. And as time passes, if you actually look into each of these celebrities, if you look into each of these historical figures, you'll find that a lot of this really is just propaganda, and it's not true. A lot of people who in history we think of as being vegetarian weren't actually vegetarian. The rewriting of history is full of this issue, that people misrepresent historical figures for having had morals and qualities about them that they didn't actually have. So I have been reading Thomas Tryon and thinking to myself, look, this could have been figured out at any period of history. It doesn't take a genius. Anybody can learn. It made me think, I remember when I first became vegan. When I first was learning about this stuff, I made a big document that I shared with some of my family, and I was hopeful. I had some optimism that what I had sent to them would lead them to become vegetarian or vegan themselves. But after being vegan for almost 6 years now, I've really concluded that I've failed at converting any of my family members to vegetarianism or veganism. None of them cared about it. None of them care enough to change their diet. And it's with great sadness that I reflect on how little I've done to influence other people in the world to become vegan. It's really a difficult task to try to convert anybody to veganism. And if you try to rely on these historical figures, I just can't believe that being vegan, what we have to rely on is fake history. We have to watch these videos and see people claiming that these historical figures were vegetarian or vegan when they weren't. And if you just do a little bit of research, if you read the primary sources, you'll find out that they weren't. Thomas Tryon, despite his advocating for a non-meat diet, and even he couldn't convert his wife to veganism. This is what it means to be vegetarian or vegan. You're living in this world where everybody is participating in a cruel system, and you try to get people to change their mind on a subject, and they just refuse to listen to you. Now, there's a lot worth reading in the ancient texts. You yourself can read these texts. They aren't that long. But this week I was trying to look into these different historical figures, and I just read Plutarch's On the Eating of Flesh, Porphyry on abstinence from animal food. This is 2,000 years ago. These philosophers had figured it out. Some of the same exact arguments, like the structure of the human body, the teeth, the mouth, the fact that we don't actually eat flesh raw, we don't bite into the hide of an animal. This same exact image that vegan activists say today can be found in Plutarch. Sadly, when I was looking into Thomas Tryon, I think a lot of what he had to say was simply that if you want to be a pure soul, and also in reading Porphyry, the way to purity is to eat a slender diet, to eat as little as possible, or to eat as light as possible, and this is purifying for the soul, and this brings us closer to this belief that we are souls living in human bodies, as opposed to the idea that we are our bodies, and this is the one life that we have. We're not going to be reincarnated into an animal. It's not that we will refuse to eat meat because we think that a soul that possibly could be reincarnated into a human being is in this animal, and that's wrong to kill this animal because it could be reincarnated into a human being, right? That it's equivalent to murder for this reason. It can't be for these reasons that people decide to go vegan. And it can't be based on a lie. I don't want a movement based on a lie. I don't want an ideology based on a lie. And a diet based on a lie either. And I don't want to be a part of a movement that relies on pseudoscience. I don't want to be a part of a movement that relies on kind of religious ideology. I'm a nihilist. I don't believe that we are souls living in these fleshy bodies, and the way to purifying our souls is to not eat meat. But I think for a large part of the history of vegetarianism and veganism, that is what has led people to not eating meat, to abstaining from eating meat. If you live this way where you're eating animals, if you are eating animal products, you're contributing to a thousands of year history of animal slaughter, cruelty, for no good reason. It's really awful, and the consequences are just terrible. The impacts on the environment, the impacts on human morality, the impacts on our whole society, it really matters. And it seems like the only people that care, the only people who are trying to make a difference, they rely on these fake facts. It can't be based on fake history. It can't be that people are inspired to become vegetarian or vegan based off of a lie. So I am advocating for a movement, a vegan movement that is based on reality, and that's based on doing the right thing just because it's the right thing to do.